The note was trembling in his hand when he placed it under the windshield wiper of the damaged car. Rain poured over the parking lot like the sky itself was disappointed in him. The broken taillight glistened under the flickering grocery store lamp, a red wound in the dark. Marcus Reed stood there for a long moment, shoulders slumped, staring at the scratch his old pickup had left on a sleek black Mercedes. His breath came out in shallow bursts, mixing with the cold October air of Columbus, Ohio. He could have driven away. No one had seen him. No cameras were obvious. No one was around, but his 8-year-old son had. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in doing the right thing even when it hurts, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who still believes in good people, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that restore faith in humanity. Marcus had barely enough money to cover rent that month. Since his wife passed away 3 years ago from a sudden illness, life had been nothing but long shifts, overdue notices, and quiet nights filled with questions he couldn't answer for his son, Caleb. He worked as a warehouse loader during the day and delivered groceries at night when he could. Every dollar was counted twice before it was spent. His pickup truck, a rusted blue relic from 1998, was both his lifeline and his liability. When he had misjudged the tight parking space and felt the sickening crunch of metal, his heart had nearly stopped. Caleb had been in the passenger seat, clutching a math workbook, eyes wide. For a second, Marcus considered pretending it hadn't happened. He could say someone else must have hit it. He could drive away. They needed that money more than whoever owned this luxury car. But Caleb's small voice broke the silence, saying that Mom always said we should tell the truth, even when it's hard. That was all it took. Marcus tore a page from his delivery notepad and wrote in careful, shaky letters. He apologized. He explained that he didn't have much, but he would pay for the damage, even if it took time. He left his name and phone number. No excuses, no lies, just truth. What Marcus didn't know was that someone had been watching from inside the grocery store's glass entrance. Victoria Langston, CEO of Langston Retail Group, had stepped out of her town car moments earlier and noticed the scene unfolding. She had paused, hidden behind the tinted doors, as she saw the old pickup and the frightened father stepping out into the rain. She expected him to flee. Most people did when they damaged something expensive. She had seen it countless times. Security footage, insurance claims, empty apologies. But she watched him stand there for nearly 5 minutes, writing something. She watched the little boy beside him, soaked in rain, holding the umbrella over his father's head instead of his own. Something about that image refused to leave her. Victoria was used to power. Her days were filled with board meetings, acquisitions, and decisions that affected thousands of employees across the country. Her company owned the very grocery store in that lot. She had built her empire in Chicago and expanded across the Midwest, her name featured in business magazines and leadership panels. She was admired, respected, even feared in corporate circles. Yet she felt an ache she could never quite explain. After Marcus drove away, Victoria walked to her car and gently pulled the note from beneath the wiper. The ink had smudged slightly from the rain, but the message was clear. The handwriting was humble, almost apologetic in its shape. Most people with money expected honesty. Few actually saw it. The next morning, Marcus's phone rang while he was stacking pallets at the warehouse. He almost didn't answer, assuming it was another bill collector. But something made him step aside and pick up. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and unexpected. It wasn't an angry car owner demanding payment. It was a woman asking if he was the one who left the note on the Mercedes. His stomach tightened as he admitted he was. She asked if they could meet that afternoon at the grocery store parking lot. The rest of the day crawled by like a sentence being served. Marcus imagined lawsuits, insurance claims, and payments he couldn't possibly afford. He calculated numbers in his head that didn't add up. Rent, utilities, school supplies, the truck's failing transmission. He wondered how he would explain it to Caleb if they had to move again. When he arrived that afternoon, the rain had stopped. The sky was clear, almost unfairly beautiful. Caleb insisted on coming along, saying he wanted to apologize too. Victoria was already there, standing beside the repaired Mercedes. It looked flawless, as if the scratch had never existed. She wore a tailored navy coat and carried herself with quiet authority, but her eyes were softer than Marcus expected. He apologized immediately, explaining he was prepared to set up a payment plan. He spoke quickly, nervously, admitting he didn't have insurance coverage for such damages, but promising he would work overtime, take extra shifts, whatever it required. Victoria listened without interrupting. She studied his worn boots, his calloused hands, the way he kept placing himself slightly in front of his son as if shielding him from something invisible. She then told him something that left him speechless. The damage had already been covered. She had chosen to repair it without filing any claim. She said the note had been enough. Marcus felt confusion wash over him. He insisted he still wanted to pay something, anything. Victoria shook her head and told him that honesty was rarer than money. She asked him what he did for a living. When he explained his warehouse job and delivery shifts, she grew thoughtful. She asked about Caleb, about school, about how they were managing. Marcus hesitated but answered truthfully. Managing was a generous word. Victoria made a decision in that moment that surprised even herself. 2 weeks later, Marcus received an email inviting him to interview for a facilities supervisor position at one of Langston Retail Group's distribution centers. He assumed it was a mistake, but it wasn't. Victoria had looked into his background, seen years of steady work, glowing references from previous supervisors, and no record of complaints. Just a man who kept showing up. The interview was rigorous. Marcus felt out of place in borrowed dress shoes and a second-hand blazer. But he spoke honestly about leadership on warehouse floors, about motivating tired teams, about safety and responsibility. He spoke the way he had written that note, without pretense. He got the job. The salary nearly doubled what he had been earning. The schedule was stable. Benefits included health insurance, something he hadn't had since his wife passed. For the first time in years, Marcus felt the suffocating pressure on his chest begin to lift. Caleb noticed it too. His father smiled more. They moved into a modest but brighter apartment closer to Caleb's school. Marcus started attending school events he previously had to miss because of night shifts. The constant fear of financial collapse slowly faded. Victoria followed his progress quietly. She never made it public that she had intervened. To the company, Marcus was simply a new hire who earned his position. But privately, she watched him transform a struggling facility into one of the most efficient in the region. Employee turnover dropped. Morale improved. Productivity increased. His honesty wasn't just moral, it was practical. Months later, during a leadership summit in Chicago, Victoria invited Marcus to speak briefly about integrity in operations. Standing on a stage he never imagined he'd see, he shared the story of a rainy night in Ohio when he could have driven away but didn't. He didn't mention the car owner by name. He simply said that his son was watching, and that was reason enough. The audience applauded politely, unaware of how deeply the story struck the woman seated in the front row. Victoria realized something that day. She had built an empire on strategy and intelligence, but what moved her most was a man in a rusted pickup choosing honesty when no one demanded it. Life didn't suddenly become perfect for Marcus. There were still bills, still challenges, still moments of doubt, but there was stability, there was dignity, and there was proof that one right decision could echo far beyond a single night. If this story has touched your heart so far, take a moment to engage with the video. Like it, share it with someone who needs a reminder that integrity still matters, and subscribe for more real-life inspired stories that restore hope. And before we reach the end, I want to ask you something special. Comment the word integrity below if you believe doing the right thing always finds its way back to you. 1 year after that rainy night, Marcus and Caleb stood in the same grocery store parking lot. Not because of an accident, but because Marcus had been promoted again. Victoria had personally handed him the letter earlier that day. As they walked past the exact spot where the scratch had once marked a turning point, Caleb squeezed his father's hand and said he was proud of him. Marcus looked at the empty space where the Mercedes had once been and felt a quiet gratitude. He hadn't known someone powerful was watching that night. He hadn't known a CEO stood behind glass doors measuring his character. He hadn't known that a simple, rain-soaked note would rewrite the direction of their lives. All he had known was that his son was watching. And sometimes, that is enough. If this story moved you even a little, please like, comment, and share it with someone who believes the world still needs honest hearts. Because somewhere, someone is facing a choice in the rain right now, and your support might remind them to leave the note instead of driving away.